Welcome back to the Powered Up Coaches Show, sponsored by Sideline Power, your number one choice for coaching communications and all things sports tech related. If you're new to the program, the Powered Up Coaches Show goes beyond the X's and O's and really delves into why coaches do what they do. How does a coach produce winning seasons year after year after year? In this week's episode, voice of Ashland Greenwood football, Tim Washburn, sits down with Reed Manstedt, head coach at Waverly High School, and they talk about things like how do you come into a great program and make it better, especially if your first 4 seasons weren't so stellar. What is the importance of a youth football program without select teams? And what does elite preparation look like, and how does it equal elite results? It's a great program, so stay tuned and stay powered up.
Well, now this is a treat because sitting to my right, Coach Reed Manstedt, the head coach at Waverly, he is a Wahooligan. I'm an Ashland guy. That's the old, very, a friendly term we use over here to talk about these kids from Wahoo. But welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Listen, I got to know about Wahoo. Growing up, Ashland Wahoo, great rivalry, right? Saunders County, the king of Saunders County. So tell me what it was like, a day in the life of a 12-year-old in Wahoo, Nebraska. What were some of the football traditions you remember?
Well, first off, a lot of them were shooting baskets out in the front, because Wahoo was such a basketball town when I was growing up. Because I was a student manager for the basketball team, and so ironically, and I was a student manager for Coach Fox since I was, I think, in like 6th grade. So I was very involved on both sides of that. But growing up in Wahoo, and I did, Wahoo was going through the glory days of what was their basketball time. I mean, they were hanging a banner, it seemed like, every year when I was in 3rd.
Now, was Mick Anderson still the coach?
So Mick Anderson was when I was young, and then Coach Watton took over.
Yeah.
And so Mark Watton was the head coach there for much of my childhood. And then Coach Sheaf came in probably when I was in about 7th grade-ish, somewhere in there. Came over from David City Aquinas. And so, but from a football standpoint, obviously, I had an older brother. And so, I was a student manager getting to watch my older brother, who's the quarterback. And so he was Coach Fox's first quarterback his junior and senior year there at Wahoo. And so definitely got to grow up watching a lot of athletics. Athletics are a huge part of Wahoo's culture. And so definitely a big thing. Bishop Newman as well. That was back when they were winning lots of basketball championships.
It was amazing. Yeah. I mean, to be in a town that had the success in basketball for both Wahoo and Bishop Newman. Tell me a little bit about what that was like.
It was ironic.
Did they pull for each other? I mean, was it one of those things, or was it? I mean, I know that's a good, healthy rivalry.
It's a rivalry.
Right?
I mean, obviously, like we grew up playing Wahoops together and stuff like that. So, a lot of those kids, heck, they're your neighbors. They're, they live next door to you. It's kind of funny as you get up into high school, just because you don't play athletics with each other anymore. You don't hang out with each other near as much as you might think. I know when we went to college, I went to Midland University, and there was a lot of Newman kids and a lot of public kids that just happened to go through there at the time. And we all hung out with each other in college, and people were like, "Oh God, I bet you guys all hung out in high school." And I'm like, "No,
you guys are too busy trying to beat each other."
Well,
right?
exactly. And it wasn't that we disliked each other. It's just, you get so caught up in the athletics of schedules and stuff like that. You just don't have a lot of time. You hang out with the kids you see, you hang out with the kids that you're in season with and stuff. And so there wasn't a whole lot of time for that. But we always seem to see each other in the summers at the county fair and everything else.
I love that. And, one of the things that I'm curious from your perspective, you grow up in this town just rich and steeped in tradition in basketball. Was there ever a time where basketball was your favorite sport, football was kind of secondary, or was it always football?
It's always been football. I grew up in a football family. My father played at the university, played in the NFL for 5 years, and so I grew up in a football-rich household. So it was always football. There was never any doubt about that. We're big into track as well. Football, track are kind of our two things. But I grew up loving basketball. Obviously in the Wahoops and all that stuff, watching all those teams. But football was always number one priority for us.
Yeah. So what was it like? I mean, you had plenty of kids in Wahoo to get together. Now, is this social media age where everyone was inside on the
no,
or were you guys out, battling each other on the playground?
Yeah, a lot more of that, especially when we were younger. Now, as we got into high school, obviously we would play a lot of video games and stuff like that. But this was still back in the day where, like, if you wanted to text message somebody, you only had like 100 text messages before you started getting charged for it. And so we weren't really doing a lot of texting. It was very short, like I'm over here, whatever, like there wasn't a lot of texting back and forth. If you wanted to talk to somebody, you either called them or you went over and saw them. And so,
Yeah. Worst thing about youth sports that happened was that obviously they took away the unlimited, or they brought in unlimited plans, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
now they can do all that.
Terrible.
Coach, here's one of the things that always intrigues me too. When you look at the opportunities that you were given and afforded in Wahoo athletically,
Right.
and you look back on that, I have to imagine you were so thankful for those opportunities. Talk about some of those that you got as a youth, whether it was football, basketball, just those opportunities to compete.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. There was just loads of opportunities to compete, but as a kid, you just don't know any different. You know what I mean? You've never been anywhere else. It's all you know, and so you're not quite as appreciative of it at the time. I think that's something that as you get older, you look back and appreciate. And so obviously we didn't have tackle football in Wahoo. We didn't have youth football. If you wanted to play youth football tackle wise, you had to go to like Meade. They went up and played in a Fremont league. But my father, he wanted me to just kind of hold off. I think if there had been tackle football in our town, he would have let me play. But I didn't get to play tackle football until I was a seventh grader for the first time. And so obviously those opportunities were there. But I loved flag football growing up. That was probably some of my favorite memories of that, just going down to Hackberry Field and all those different things, and Sam Crawford, and getting to play in the outfields there and with flag football. And so, but loads of opportunities from baseball to, and there's so many people involved and willing to help, and that's a huge thing. Is you got to have people willing to help, and I think Wahoo's got a lot of that.
You know what I loved about Hackberry Field when my boys were playing over there as well is, first off, a million games, but you hated the 11 o'clock Saturday morning game when the Huskers had an 11 o'clock game.
Yeah.
It was like, no.
Yeah.
But oh, what a great experience. Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned tackle football, and you didn't play it, your father being a former NFLer. What was his mindset on why he didn't want you as a youth to play tackle?
Like I said, I think if the opportunity had been there, he would have let us do it. It was more one of those things. I think he probably just didn't want to drive me to meet every day. I don't think it was anything with that. It was literally just he kind of, his mindset was, you got your whole, you're going to be able to play that as you get older. You're fine. Like I said, I think a lot of it is he just didn't want to drive me to meet every day and have to do that. But, it's one of those things where, at that time, flag football was really what people did. The tackle football wasn't all that, this is 2002, 2003 time-ish. That wasn't around a lot. It's not like today where, over at Waverly, we got our junior Vikes that goes third grade to sixth grade. Wahoo's got the same thing. They got I think it's the Rhinos or something. It goes probably third grade to sixth grade. So,
and that's tackle, right?
And that's tackle.
Do you have that flag option as well?
We do not. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. That option is available in Waverly. I know I can't speak on Wahoo. I don't know there, but
yeah.
I do know that option is still available, but I don't think it's for very old. It's like maybe first, second, third grade, but after that, I don't even know that option's there. But it might be. I shouldn't say that it's not.
Well, let's pick that up a little bit later because I want to talk about your youth program because, boy, I've talked to a lot of people who say the youth program in Waverly is amazing. So we're going to transition back to that in a second. But before we do, we're going to take this journey a little bit further. You played then for Coach Chad Fox, who has won and won and won, and he's developed some great players over the years. Tell me about your experience from Coach Fox and give me something that today you use from him that you learned from him as a player.
Well, I think the number one thing I got from Coach was just how you treat players. I was a player's coach in the sense of I wanted to build positive relationship with my coach. I wanted to please them. I wanted to, get told good job a lot. That's just the type of player I was. I wasn't, and Coach was that type of coach. And so a lot of that is how I try and treat my kids nowadays, is try to build positive relationships with them. I didn't respond well to heavy criticism and being pushed like that. I was much better if you just came over, put your arm around me, and told me what I did wrong. And that's what Coach did a really good job of. He didn't belittle us in front of, your peers. And so even though I'm not perfect with that today, you get caught up in the moment, but that's something that I definitely would say I got from Coach, only because that was how I like to be coached myself. And so, Coach Fox was just a phenomenal coach. Like I said, he's a friend today. As I've gotten a little bit older, kind of got to get to know him in a different level. Like I said, he was been a part of my wife babysat his kids growing up. You know, he was a host couple in our wedding, and so I mean, we've gotten to know each other really well throughout the course of time. And then obviously football too is fun to get to talk to him and kind of see all that. But
Yeah, as a peer today, isn't
yeah.
that nice? And you talked about how you build relationships on the field, but how do you build relationships off the field?
Well, that's the tough part. You know what I mean? I mean, you gotta be present around the kids. You know, there's always that fine line of trying not to ever cross that line of making the kids think that you're their friend, but also building that relationship with them where they feel comfortable and have fun around you and want to be around you. And I think that's what the weight room's for. That's what the classroom's for. That's one of the things that I think is one of the most positive things about being a teacher and a coach, is you have that opportunity to build relationships with kids in the classroom as well, and not just seeing them on the football field. But I think that also too, you got to see the kids. Seeing them in the weight room's a big one because it's a little bit different setting than a classroom setting. So you can, and we're so fortunate at Waverly, we got Anthony Harms as our strength coach. So all I got to do is show up and just be a cheerleader, and I can walk around and make sure, hey, how you doing? How's summer going? Hey, were you at the work? I can just kind of, I don't have to be the one yelling at him all the time to get working hard and stuff. That's what Coach Harms is for, and he does a heck of a job with that. So
yeah,
that's kind of one of the main things about building relationships there.
Yeah, at this point now, you're wrapping up your senior year at Wahoo, and you choose to go to Midland, play some football. Are you convinced at this point I'm going to be a high school football coach, or did it come later?
Well, ironically, I knew from about when I was in 5th grade, I wanted to be a shop teacher and a football coach. Now, I will tell you that there was a time period where I thought maybe I wanted to get into college coaching and see how high. I knew I wasn't a D1 football player, so in my mind at that time, I thought, well, maybe I could be a big-time college coach, right? Like I thought that since I can't do it in playing, maybe I can do it as a coach. And as I got older, and you start to see the grind that is associated with that, and obviously I had other goals and aspirations of wanting to stay in the area, have a family. My wife's from the area, and I will say I had an opportunity to do a GA-ship right after my senior year. Midland actually added a graduate assistant program my senior year and asked me to do that, to be the first one to go through that. And I was kind of burnt out at the time. College football can do that to you.
It's a job, right?
And yeah, and I didn't really want to move. I knew that obviously if I went down that path, there was going to be a lot of moving involved. Because if you really want to be a college coach, you're not staying in one place for very long, especially as a GA. You're going to have to finish those, then you got to go hired on as an assistant somewhere, maybe even do another GA-ship. After that, you got to go you got to work your way up that ladder. Mm-hmm. And I just maybe in a different life, that would have been fun. We all have, wonder what that could have been. But to be honest with you, by the time college was over, I just was ready to get back to being. I just wanted to get back to the simplicity. I loved my experience in college, but there's just something special about high school football, and I wanted to get back to that kind of that innocence of it. You know what I mean? And kind of. Just had that fun. The thing that made me fall in love with football was high school football,
right?
And playing for Coach Fox, and stuff like that because of the relationships that he built. I've never heard a kid who played for Coach Fox say negative things about him, never. And so that says a lot about him. But like I said, it was just one of those things. I wanted to get into coaching, so I knew right away I wanted to do that. I didn't know at what level. By the time I graduated from college, I knew exactly what level I wanted to be at.
It's interesting. I was talking to a couple of coaches here who played college football, and the one thing they say, same thing as you, loved their experience, learned a ton from their college football experience, but there's something a little bit different Friday at 7 o'clock under the lights versus maybe that 1 o'clock kickoff, right? Yeah. On a Saturday, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you talk about the innocence. Expand on that a little bit. You said, I love the innocence of high school football. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think that there's just something really special about playing football with the kids that you grew up with and you went to elementary school with, and I played flag football with, and I played middle school football with, and all those things. And that was the biggest transition when I got to college was I didn't have that. And the rivalries, the Ashland Greenwoods, the Bishop Newmans, all those teams, the Boys Towns, the schools that you grew to love to play against. When I got to college, and I remember everybody was so excited to go play. I think it was either Doan or Dan. And I remember just being like,
you didn't understand it, right?
Doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Sure did when I was a senior. You know what I mean? But at the time, it didn't. and so I just think that there's something special about. I mean, there's just something, I could elaborate on that forever.
Yeah.
I mean, they did that whole Boys of Fall segment, and you got people like Joe Namath and all those people talking about how special it is, and how there's just something really special about a Friday night, and and that is so true. And it's hard to even put into words, but I just think that that ability to play with your friends that you grew up with in front of your families, in a community that you grew up in, a community that supports you. There's just something really special about that.
Yeah. I always say to Barry, we do some play-by-play on Friday night of Ashland Greenwood. We've been doing it for 15 years. I say to Barry, there's just a reverence in that broadcast booth on Friday night. I mean, it's just a place of complete peace, and it's just, there's no better place to be. And I think you feel it certainly big time as a football coach.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get caught up in the stress of trying to win and make sure you don't look like a fool in front of everybody that's coming to support you or
hey,
to watch.
Sometimes you can win, and someone might say that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they do. But, I when you stop and just kind of appreciate it and look around, we're very blessed. And as Mike Johnson, one of the guys who I coach with, says, we have a very inexpensive hobby, and so golf's expensive, all that, but coaching, very inexpensive hobby. So it's a cool one.
Well said. So let's talk about your coaching career. You finally say, I'm gonna go here. I'm getting into high school coaching, and you start off at Crete. And you and I had a great conversation before we went on air. 4 years, you learned a lot. Didn't have, state championships and maybe deep playoff runs, but you said you got so much out of those 4 years of learning through that experience. Talk a little bit about what stands at the top for you, what you learned.
Well, in my time there, we never had a winning season, and so we and you got to understand, we're coming off when Crete was winning lots of state titles and stuff, and so I got the unenvious job of taking over after Chuck McGinnis there, who a Hall of Fame coach who I think the world of. He's taught me about as much about being a coach in football as anybody, and he's a tough one to take over after. And when I did, it was just one of those things where we fought numbers a little bit. We didn't quite have the size that you need to compete in Class B. But at the same time, during my time there, I learned a lot. Like you said, even though we weren't successful, now that at the time it was, it's hard on you enough where you weren't sure, do I even really want to keep doing this? By the time my time was there, because we hadn't been successful. But then I came here to Waverly and we were successful. But what I can tell you is I'm thankful that I got those years there where we struggled a little bit, because it forced me to become a better coach. It forced me to, I didn't have, a 250-pound offensive line straight across the board there where we could just call ISO the whole time and run for a bunch of yards. We had to be creative. We had to think outside the box. And I think that's helped morph me into the coach I am today, with the defense that we run, that the offense that I want us to run. And so, I think that all that windy road that I took, kind of helped get us to where we are today. And I wouldn't be near the coach that I am if I hadn't gone through that experience. And so, certainly thankful that I had it. Thankful it's over.
Yeah.
As far as just I loved my time there, and I think the world of that. But like I said, I love where I'm at, and we've been fortunate to be successful.
And we're going to talk about that success. But a lot of people forget that Bill Belichick had a tenure as the Cleveland Browns. Didn't win as much as he wanted, but he learned so much. Went on, of course, to be a great coach for the New England Patriots, as we all know that story. But same thing as you. You come in 2019, and boy, you've had a great run of success at Waverly. But a couple things I want to ask you. When you go in, what did you get right as a new hire in 2019? Because there's a lot of coaches going to be watching this who are in their first or second year of coaching. What did you get right about what you did, and if you think back to your first month or couple of months starting your program at Waverly?
Well, we won.
I like that answer, but how'd you get there?
And I mean that because what I mean by that is this is, when I got hired, I'm sure there was loads of people who thought, what the heck are we doing hiring a guy who's never even had a winning season as a coach, And so, and I was taking over for a gentleman named Tim Williams, who the kids loved. And, that was a tough transitional period to get the kids to buy into what I wanted us to be as a program, and to get them to believe in me as their coach, not the guy who had just left, who was a great coach. And the only way you can do that is to, sell them as hard as you can, and then get them to try to believe in what you're doing. And then you got to go win. Because, unfortunately, if you go out there and drop one in a tough transition like that, where, the guy left on great terms, in the sense of the kids really liked him, it's one of those things where you can't lose right away. That's tough. You know what I mean? You can lose your locker room right away. And a lot of the people who are maybe wondering, why the heck did we hire this guy in the first place, can say that. And then the negativity can creep in. And so the best thing we did right away was win. But obviously there's more to it than that.
Sure. Give me one thing you did. If you think of a strategy, whether it was conscious or subconscious, what was the strategy you had to get those kids to buy in?
I think the defensive mindset that we came in with,
which was what?
We turned into a 3-4 that was an aggressive 3-4 style defense, where we just sell out on stopping the run. And because when I got hired at Waverly, the offensive coordinator Brian Benson, he was staying on, so we were running the same offense we had ran in the past when Tim was there. The difference was, when I came in, we switched up our defense, and we went to a different style 3-4 than they had ran in the past. And we sold out on stopping the run. We run cover zero. We're very unique in that sense. And so I think that kind of bringing in that defensive mindset and turning us into I think, we're a defensive first program, and I'll tell everybody that, that's where we take we spend a lot of time practicing on that side of the ball. And when our kids want to play defense, they take a lot of pride on that side of the ball. And I would say that was probably the one area that, if I had to say, really helped us, would probably be that. Because and now you got to have the right athletes for it. We had that first year, we had some really good wrestlers on our defense. We had some really good kids, and they bought into what we were doing, and they made us look like we knew what we were doing as coaches. So
well, what player doesn't like to just set their hair on fire, right, and go to the ball carry? I mean,
absolutely.
You brought that aggressiveness. I'm sure that was a great way to get some buy-in there on the defensive side as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about a term you like to use, and I went through your Twitter account, and I see it everywhere. Elite preparation equals elite results. Where did that come from? What inspired you?
Well, one of our coaches, Landon Miller is his name. He's our quarterbacks coach, and he's going to be helping us with play calling next year too. And so Landon Miller came to us from Iowa a year ago. And Landon was a head coach there and stuff, and he was always talked about elite. We want to be elite, and that was something that we hadn't used a lot, when we did that. And so when he came here, he's like, we have an elite weight program. We have elite facilities. We have elite this, elite that. And so we started kind of using it, just kind of started clicking. And, when you think about where we want to be as a program, you want to be elite, meaning at the top, you know what I mean? And so we feel like we have our preparations right there, and so now we want to get to, and we feel like we do. We have elite athletes, and we have such good athletes, and we are so blessed in that sense. And so we just kind of want to live in that area.
Yeah, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to really live it and get those players to buy in daily. How do you do that? I mean, how do you enmesh your players in that mindset of elite preparation, of course, equals elite results?
Yeah, I think that it comes down to just that blue-collar mindset of coming to work every day and working hard and not complaining, and understanding that, I know Coach Harms asks all the time, do you deserve to win? And it's kind of that, it's in that same preference. If you don't perform, or if you don't prepare in an elite setting, in an elite way, do you deserve to win? I don't know. I mean, you might beat some teams, where you're going to beat everybody. And so we ask that question a lot. And, I think that starts in our weight program. That's kind of where that whole mindset gets morphed, and that hard work. And we're firm believers that if you put the time in and you put the effort in, that you're going to get elite results.
Yeah, it comes out the other side. And I think that is a great way to reinforce what you guys are trying to accomplish. But now let's talk about culture, and it might have a little overlap here with what we just talked about. But it's one thing. Everybody knows that culture is where you have to be. You have to have a good, strong, winning culture, right, to be successful. But how much time do you have to spend on that very intentionally to have that culture really, again, be a foundation of your program?
Well, there's a lot of time put into it, and it isn't just from the months of August to October, November. It takes a lot of time out of season as well. But I think that if you want to have elite culture or just great culture in your football program, you need to have it in the school, because the other kids are going to play other sports, and we want our kids to play other sports. I don't want our football players to just play football. I want them to wrestle. I want them to play basketball.
Why is that?
Well, I think number one, it's good for them. It's good for them to compete in other things and be a part of teams. There's just something to be said about being a part of a group of guys working for a common goal, which is what you get when you're a part of a team. And so, we want our kids to run track, play baseball, all those different things. And so I think that kind of builds into that culture. But our culture is created, through our athletic director, Brad McMillan, who has hired coaches who all work together. I think that's a huge part of it as well. Because all it takes is one bad egg that says, I want all the athletes to play my sport, nothing else. And right now we got a lot of guys and a lot of coaches who, support each other, want their athletes out for other sports. And that's a huge thing, because in today's world, you can get a lot of people who want to specialize. And we're a big school. We're not big enough to do that in. And so, I think that the culture piece too is the foundation of it is built in our weight room. And so one of the things that we do is we start working with our athletes in 7th grade in the weight room. So myself, Coach Benson, Coach Miller, Coach Harms, we got about 4 or 5 of us that are in the weight room with kids 5 days a week, every week of the year. We get 1 week off, and that's usually this week we're in right now, the week between when school got out and when summer weights goes.
Is it to hold them accountable? Is it to motivate? Is it a combination?
Well, I think a couple things, but number one, we got a gentleman who really knows what he's doing, and the proof is in the pudding that we can produce good athletes if we can get them into the weight room. And Coach Harms has a program that's set up that he knows exactly what he's doing, so he's not harming athletes. He's just helping them maximize their potential. And, we can get those kids to buy into the weight room at a young age. They're going to stick with it. And a kid who, when they're a 7th grader, might not look like much by the time they get through the program and they become juniors and seniors, could be all district, all state level football players for us, or track athletes, or baseball players, or basketball players, and so that's where the culture starts. Yeah. And that's the number one thing that I think we do right now that kind of helps us in that area.
Man, I'll tell you, if these young coaches that are watching the show today, or coaches that are looking to take that to the next level, something consistent I have seen already with the 4 coaches I've interviewed has been about how you want them competing year-round, how culture is so big in that weight room. I mean, these are common themes and common threads that go through really successful coaches. Now, we're going to talk about some how-tos, all right? I'm going to give you some opportunities. The coaches out there wanting to hear from the shop teacher who is all about do-it-yourself and how-to, right? How can you use social media as a football coach to build your program?
Well, I think you got to be careful in social media as well. You know what I mean? It's you want to post stuff, but you got to be careful in the sense of I think if you can post too much stuff, it can rub maybe some of the you don't want to over post and then have everything just be about the football program. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so when we post, it's usually the successes of the other programs. Kind of saying, hey, look what the track team just did. Wow, congratulations on winning a state championship. Hey, look at all those. We set a record number of kids going to state wrestling. That's fantastic. You know what I mean? So
right.
We want to support the culture, and we want to support the other groups as well. So that would be something I would say is don't just post about your program. Embrace the great things that the kids who play participate in your program do within your school, whether it's the theater, the musical, whatever it is. I mean, anything.
I love that. I mean? Even outside of athletics. Yeah.
Yeah. Just anything. And so, I would say too, you got to be real careful what you post online, because you're always going to get somebody who maybe doesn't agree with it, and it can turn into a negative thing as well. I've seen the negative sides of social media where people can say stuff that you can't reply to because I can't go down that rabbit hole.
Right.
Even though I'd love to say this to you back to rebuttal, I can't do that because, for whatever reason. So I always say be careful with it.
Yeah.
But at the same time.
But if a coach isn't using social media at all, Is it a mistake in your opinion?
No, I don't believe so. I think that there are still ways to. Obviously, it's a huge thing, but I don't think it's something that you absolutely have to have. I truly believe there's successful coaches. I mean, Coach Fox is not a big Twitter guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't live on it and post every day on it, and neither do I. I actually have somebody else run our Twitter account because I just don't want to. It's not something I think about doing a lot of times, is posting on it and stuff. So I have other people do that for us. But, I know there's successful programs out there that don't use social media. And so I might be the unique duck in that sense, but I think there's a place for it.
Yeah, I do. And by the way, to your point, you've executed that strategy well. Just looking at your Twitter feeds, it's all about. I mean, there's so much about other programs, wrestlers, track, you name it.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, you reach out beyond just football, and you do a great job of that. I almost get a sense that you believe there's a responsibility that your football players have, and you as a football coach, to your school and to the other student, members of the student body. Tell me a little bit about that responsibility that you believe you and your players share as being part of that football team.
Well, I think the number one thing that we have is, when you're part of, I think our football team last year had 126 kids on it, a huge senior class. So that number will go down a little bit. We'll probably be right around 120, 115 this year. And so when you get that many kids, it's hard to kind of make sure and celebrate all those things. But there's a responsibility in, them going out and hopefully, we always talk about representing, Waverly in the community in a good way, and what a great way to do that. I'm a firm believer in it's really one of the things that was so shocking to me, and that I just love about Waverly, is how involved our kids are in activities. Between band, band's a huge thing at Waverly. Our starting right tackle was a band member. We'll have kids on this year's team who are band members. And so just being involved in things other than football, and then, obviously as a program trying to celebrate those things as they accomplish great things, and stuff like that. So,
well, I got to tell you, your band is the real deal. Milford has an incredible band.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some great pep bands out there in Nebraska. But you talk about also some things you do really well. I talked to a few other coaches, and they're like, the Waverly Youth Program is a monster. It is well done. It is well organized. So, the importance of a coach and the players, and maybe your players aren't involved, but tell me a little bit about the importance of a head football coach being involved in that youth program.
Well, so Matt Brewer, Matt is an assistant coach for us. He's the one who started that program. And a lot of the success that we're having in Waverly right now is because of the youth program that he started. So he's had as big an impact on our program as anybody because he started that youth program. He had a vision, and he executed it, and has done a fantastic job, and he still runs it today. He's one of our assistants, and that's a huge contribution that he has for that. And so, when he started that, he started it with the mindset of, we want to play Class B football with Class A numbers, because football is a numbers game, and you can't have graduating classes of 7, 8, 9 kids that play football. In Class B, you can't, and so my first year in Waverly, we had I want to say 11 seniors on our football team, and all of them were big contributors. But ever since then, we've had over 20. And so last year was our largest, I think, with 28 or 29. And so next year we're going to be at 23. And so I just think that's you got to have numbers, and you can't. It's hard to win with sophomores, and you got to have seniors. You got to have kids that believe in your program, and it's really hard for some of our kids, because we're at a spot in our program where a lot of kids in our program don't play till they become seniors. We don't play a lot of sophomores. We don't play a lot of juniors. You're really, really good if you start for us as a sophomore. And so when you look through that, the fact that these kids stick with it, and I think a lot of that has to do with the investment that they've made since third grade being a part of the Waverly football program. And so they've played third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. And, by the time they're juniors, they've put all this work in. They want to see, they want to reap the benefits of it. So they stick with it.
But Coach, listen, there are some that say when they start playing in third grade, a lot of times they get burned out, right? Mm-hmm. So there's something special that you guys are doing to really make sure that they stay with this program. I mean, to have 23 seniors year after
Yeah.
year, you guys are doing something special with the youth program, and there's probably something going on pretty special within your program, too.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Well, starting at the youth level, one of the things that when I came here, and they weren't doing this before, but it was something that, when Matt and I sat down to look at the youth program, we said we didn't want to do was we didn't want to have select teams. We didn't want to have an A team and a B team. We said we're going to just divide it even down the middle because we want kids to have a good experience with football, because our number one goal is that they have a good experience with football and stick with it throughout. I don't want to make a kid not want to play football because he doesn't get to play ever, or he's on a team where he's on the B team, so he's like, hey, I'm discouraged by that. So we don't believe in select teams. I know some programs do, and so we don't believe in select teams. We got about 2 teams per grade level, and then as they get to, they go 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and then in 7th grade they combined into one. And so I do think that us not having select teams at the lower level has been something that's been a big benefit for us to keep those kids out, have a positive experience, and like I said, you're seeing it right now. I mean, our numbers have never been larger, and we don't see it falling off. Obviously, we're going to have years where we dip down to close to probably 100 kids or something like that, but we should be over that.
Yeah. I was talking to Aurora's head coach, Coach Peterson, and,
Yep.
and he's amazing. Now, he has about 75 on his roster, but he said, I'm going to make sure that every single one of those 75 kids has a positive experience.
Yeah.
You are carrying a roster of 125, and you have great retention numbers. So, again, I know you're a humble guy. I'm going to ask you, what do you think you and your coaches do to make sure that out of 125 kids, 10 or 15 are getting lost in the shuffle and they're not feeling a part of it?
Well, and that's tough because we do have that happen at times. You know what I mean? And it's almost impossible not to. I mean, I have to, go hit the recruiting trail in our hallway some too of kids who played as maybe a sophomore. And sophomore year at our level is the tough year.
I'll bet.
It's not the freshman year, because their freshman year they're their own entity, and they're kind of their own thing. But when they get up to be the sophomores, they're the young guys of the group. You know what I mean? They're kind of the lowest on the totem pole. And so the sophomore year is the tough one. So always keeping them from their sophomore to going to be junior year is the tough one. But, you start to kind of get wind of some kids that are maybe thinking they're not playing, and you got to go out and you got to be real careful, because you can shoo them away too if you come on. You know what I mean? Sometimes trying to hound them about it all the time is almost worse than giving them a little bit of space.
That's
and then
right.
let them get through their season that they're in, and then going and talking to them. And so, but I think it goes back to trying to build positive relationships with the kids, and I'm so blessed with just amazing assistant coaches who are so good with the kids, and so that's been a huge part. Also, too, we've been successful.
Yeah.
People want to be a part of a successful program. That helps. If we're going 3-6, 1-8. Probably harder to keep some of those kids out, but when we're going 9-3, it's a little bit easier to justify wanting to put all that time in as a kid, to be a part of that. And so that's helped. But definitely, I would go back to just having that positive relationship with the kids has been a big thing. And obviously I can't do that to every kid. We got too many of them, so that there's a big weight of that on the position coaches.
And how many assistant coaches do you have?
I got a lot. We're very fortunate. So I got 10 paid staff members total,
Nice.
including
Yeah.
myself. And then I've got about 4 volunteers. So I got a staff of about 14, 15 coaches, and which I love. It's a lot of personalities to handle.
Yeah.
It's a lot of opinions at times, but it's really good. And it's one of the things where without that many people to help with the number of kids we have out, we would never be able to keep that many kids. Because like I said, I can't. I a lot of times I'm closest with our older kids, because that's who I spend the most time with it being varsity and the seniors and stuff. So having good coaches, especially at our lower level, that work with our sophomores, work with our freshmen, is huge.
Yeah. You said you have 10 assistant coaches. So I want to know a little bit about that. I mean, that is a staff. So how do you, from top down, if it is top down, may not be, but how do you from top down coach and mentor and say, this is the kind of coaching staff we're going to be? Do you have leadership sessions with them? Do you guys meet frequently? Do you have a handbook? What do you do to keep your staff and to get your staff where you want them as leaders?
Well, I think you first and foremost got to get the right guys in the room, and everybody on our staff is guys who I have a positive relationship with. Either I've coached with them in the past, or I know who they, almost everybody I've on my staff I'd coached with in the past. For example, Brian Benson, the longtime offensive coordinator at Waverly, when I came there back in 2012, I had a 1-year stint in Waverly. Brian and I coached the JV team together. The head coach of the team at the time was Mike Johnson, who's now my O-line coach. And so those were two guys who, I trust as much as anybody and think the world of. And so having those two guys there. And so then Landon Miller, who I said is a huge asset to us, was a head coach. And him and I coached together for a year at Lincoln Northeast. And so we have that kind of experience together. So Mike Hicks, one of our receivers coach, he was at Waverly when I was there that 1 year. And so Tony Jacobson, he was one of my assistant coaches at Crete. And so I've assembled a staff who, are people who I truly trust and are people that are fantastic coaches. And so I knew what I was getting with each of them. It wasn't one of those deals where I had to go out and mold them and shape them. They were already great coaches. I just had to get them, here.
The key, hiring right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get to 3 and outs. You're a defensive-minded coach. You love 3 and outs.
Yeah.
So you're going to love this part here. These are going to be kind of random. So
Okay.
Here we go. You are an elite D1 football player. And I mean, you've got 44 offers out there to go play. And one of the big collectives comes to you and says, all right, what do you want? What's your NIL deal? What is your NIL deal that you're asking for?
Oh, man. Well, first off, if I could, University of Nebraska is where it would have went no matter what. That's where my dad had played and stuff. So I grew up playing or dreaming of playing there. That's what you always wanted to do. And so I don't know what NIL deal would have got me to be away from Nebraska, but probably something with food. I tell you what, I really like food, so I don't know what it would have been.
What kind of food we gravitated towards?
Oh, probably. It had to be some Italian food
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
So maybe the Olive Garden. Maybe the Olive Garden needed to come through big for me.
You're a cheap date. I'll
That's
tell you,
right.
Coach Manstedt. All right, here we go. Husker tailgate. You'd love it. You love Nebraska football. Absolutely. 2 necessary things that you have to have at a Nebraska tailgate party. What are they? Or Nebraska tailgate.
Yeah, good food first off,
Okay.
and
You
then
already know a little Italian. That's hard on a grill, but
absolutely, and then you got to have a TV. You got to be able to watch kind of the other things that are going on.
Yeah.
You got those 2 things. Life's pretty good.
what are you watching? What's the football game you got on? What conference?
Oh God, whatever's on, probably the ABC on the rabbit ears that you're getting it off of there. So whatever the afternoon special game is, that's the one we're watching.
I like it. All right, last one on this 3 and out. You've got him in a third and 11, so we got to stop him here. Best football movie in your mind that's ever been made. A best football movie.
Oh man, there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a question that one of my buddies always asks me. He goes, "Who's the greatest football movie quarterback of all time?"
And who is it?
Oh, you got to go with on any given Sunday. Cap, I think is his name. He was a veteran quarterback who had won all that stuff, and then he obviously got his job taken, throughout the show. But he's got to be the best because he's a veteran and whatnot. So, but that's a great one because you got, Flacco and, the replace. I mean, there's just so many good ones.
There are. I thought when you say best quarterback, though, in a football movie, got to be Burt Reynolds in the longest yardage.
Heisman Trophy winner, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's good stuff. So, Coach, tell me a little bit, what do you like about that drone from Sideline Power, and how have you been using it?
Well, so we just got it this last year. One of our assistant coaches who used it at a school prior came to us and told us, "Hey, you guys got to get a drone." It was life-changing for that, them and stuff. And we sat in a staff meeting, and I remember we all kind of looked at each other like, "Are we just buying crap to buy stuff anymore? Like what, a drone? What are we going to do?" And so right away I think of how it's going to crash or, kids are going to, was I wrong? That is one of the things that was our best purchase of the year last year. And we used it every day in practice. We'd have a student manager or a kid who was unable to participate because of injury, maybe fly it for us. They take good responsibility in doing that. And then just the footage and the angle you get from the drone is a game changer. And we will never go away from it. And so we film every practice. We film every team rep, every skelly rep, every inside hole rep, and we're able to do that because of the drone. We used to try and handhold an iPad out there and stuff, and that's just, it wasn't conducive. We're not hauling out the end zone camera every day. So the drone is a game changer and something that we utilize every day, and can't imagine not ever having it.
Well, listen, this has been an absolute blast, and there's a reason why you win and you win and you win and you have. I think your legacy is just as much, too, having 23, 24 seniors in a class every year. It shows what you're doing and the kind of program you have. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and continued luck.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. And like I said, we win a lot because we got really good kids, and I got great assistant coaches. And so all I got to do is just hopefully steer the ship in the right direction. Makes my job easy.
Yeah, humble man. Thanks again, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
You bet.